Hey everybody, this is Harshman with Wholesale to Freedom. For those who don't know, I'm 100% virtual wholesaler, which means I completely wholesale properties without ever seeing the property, the seller, the buyer, the title company, any of that stuff. And for those who don't know what this channel is all about, it's all about me giving you the tips and tricks on how I run my business based off my prior experience, all the deals that I've done, over 50 plus deals, and being completely transparent with you on how to do those things. In today's video, we're gonna be learning about the fastest way to get a deal done in 24 hours and less. So smash that thumbs up for all the massive value that I'm about to drop on you. The tactics that I'm gonna teach you today are gonna save you the headaches and stress that typical wholesalers go through because they don't know how to get a deal done quickly. So let's dive straight in. In order for us to talk about how to get a wholesale done quickly, let's talk about the whole brief overview of the process of wholesaling. This is going to be a very brief explanation of this whole process. If you want to see a more in depth of how the whole A to Z process works, check out the deal playlist that I have on my channel where I go over most of the deals I've done and how I did them. I'll put a link to that playlist down in the description below for you to check out. So at the very beginning of the wholesaling process, we are marketing to the sellers, whether it be Facebook ads, driving for dollars, direct mail, cold calling, you name it. After we get in front of the seller, we end up talking to them and eventually negotiating a price that works for them and for us. At that point, we get the property and we lock it up under contract. Now, this is where the real countdown starts to happen because most of the time we have a time frame associated with our contracts that we have to find an end buyer before. Otherwise, we risk losing the deal or stressing the seller out, ultimately blowing the deal up. More importantly, we don't get paid. Again, this is where most people mess up and they can't find a buyer and they end up giving up and they get stressed out and they lose the deal. So how do you avoid doing this and close quickly? I'm gonna go over that here in a second where I use my own deal as an example on how to do this and close very quickly. But first, let's talk about what exactly I mean by closing or getting the deal done in 24 hours. Getting a deal done from start A to Z in less than 24 hours is almost impossible, if not unheard of. And when most people talk about this, this is exactly how they're describing it. The reason why that's so unheard of is because there's a process in place to not only make sure that the property's free and clear, that there's no liens, taxes, or anything like that on the property, but also it gives the title company or the title attorney time to do the paperwork they need to send off to the county. That way everything's done properly. For this reason, I almost never believe anybody who says they close a deal in less than 24 hours unless they have their own in-house attorney or closing process or a closing title company inside their own office, which people like Max Maxwell do have. It's still almost unheard of to close that quickly. So if you ever hear any of these YouTube gurus who talk about closing a deal in less than 24 hours, they're probably lying. So now that I've gotten that out of the way, you're probably asking yourself, well, what are you referring to, Alex? What I'm referring to is getting the deal done in 24 hours, meaning once you get the property under contract with the seller, I then already have an assignment agreement and a deposit put down from my buyer in less than 24 hours. The only thing that matters after that point is the title search if you haven't already done it, which you can't do unless you have a valid contract, and any hiccups along the way. So if there's any liens or anything like that, it takes extra time and usually some extra paperwork to get that taken care of. Minus all that stuff, the whole process can take less than a week. So if you do hear somebody say they close in less than a week, that's very, very possible. Now let's talk about how exactly do we do this? How do we find a buyer in less than 24 hours of signing an agreement with the seller and getting that done smoothly? I always get the question, should I find the buyer or the seller first? This always reminds me of the question, what came first, the chicken or the egg? And here's my best response to that question. Why not both? Why don't you find the seller and the buyer at the same time? Because without the buyer, you cannot close or assign your property, and without the seller, you don't have a deal to sell. Unless you buy into that astro flipping bullshit. But we'll save that for another video. So on my deal, I had already built a buyer's list prior to this deal happening. And over time, I've already built a buyer's list through these different methods that I'm about to mention. There are many more methods than what I'm mentioning, and I have videos describing that. But for example's sake, here's some examples of how I did this. One of the main things I like to do is search Facebook groups with local investors. So if you're in Atlanta, Georgia, you look up on Facebook for Atlanta, Georgia real estate investors. And once you type that in, You're going to come up with a bunch of pages that are for investors who are looking to buy real estate, sell real estate, things like that. Throughout these groups, you can actually scrape the entire group for all the posts and look up the email addresses, because people are always commenting their email addresses for people to send them deals. So just by scraping that whole entire group for those email addresses, you can add them to a free MailChimp account and send them your off-market deals. I also create ghost ads, which are fake wholesale deals that are at a really, really great price that attract buyers to me, and then that way I can filter them to make sure that they are serious buyers, just like I would with the MailChimp option. I've also posted on Craigslist many times. You gotta be careful what type of people that Craigslist bring, but the overall goal here is just to have a buyer's list to send these properties to, because even if they're not interested and they are serious buyers, they may know somebody who is interested, or they may be able to JV with you or joint venture. So you wanna be able to send these deals to your buyers quickly and effectively. And what I mean by that is the quantity versus quality with your buyers, because there is a difference. It is important to have a big buyers list, but it's more important to have a quality buyers list, because the quality buyers are going to be the ones who can perform in 24 hours or less. And this actually adds a different element to the whole buyers list that a lot of these, again, YouTube gurus won't tell you about, because they probably don't actually do any deals. I say this all the time, not all buyers are created equally. So if you want to find out how to filter buyers properly, I suggest you like this video and subscribe down below, and you'll find out. Don't worry, I'll wait. But seriously, I already created a video on how to filter buyers. I'm going to put that in the description below for you to check out after this video. Once you have a buyers list that you have filtered, it's just a matter of locking up a great deal. For example, I had a property that I was contacting the owner on, and they had listed the property on the MLS for $125,000. She had mentioned to me that her husband had just died and she was in the process of renovating the property, and now, you know, she doesn't have the time or money to do that because she's got to worry about taking care of her husband. I knew this would be a great deal for my buyers, but I had to get it somewhere around $80,000 or less in order to make this work. So I offered her $70,000. We negotiated a little bit and agreed at $75,000. I know what you're thinking. Did you seriously get it for that much of a discount? For $50,000 off? And the answer is yes. All I did was ask a simple question, and that's where you cannot be afraid to make those lowball offers. Immediately after they signed the agreement, when I sent it to them that day, I sent out a text to my buyer who had previously bought from me and I've already filtered. I knew that he could perform. I texted him the address, the information about the property, and the price that we wanted for it. He texted me back, said he would drive by the property and let me know what he thought that night. He also asked if there was any access to the property. I said just because I had locked this up 5 minutes prior to this phone call, or excuse me, this text message, I did not yet have property access, but we are working on it. He said no problem, I'll just look in the window. I did tell him I had photos of the interior from the listing, and they are current. Later that night, he told me that he would need to be at $75,000 in order to make this work. I immediately texted him back and said, hey, at $75,000, that's just too low for the seller. Is there any way you could see yourself coming up at all? He texted me back and said he could do $80,000 plus closing, but that was it. So I immediately texted him. I said, hey, listen, let me talk to my partner, see if I can get that approved. If so, are you ready to move forward? He texted me back, said, yeah, absolutely. I can have the deposit dropped off first thing in the morning. So I talked to my partner and I told him that, you know, hey, this is gonna work. Drop the deposit off in the morning and I'll send the assignment over right now. So he signed the assignment immediately, and the next day we had everything in escrow. Just like that, it was less than 24 hours and we had this property from under contract with the seller to a full assignment with the buyer, and we were ready to close as soon as title search was done. Title search came in a couple days later, clean and clear just like we thought. And then we were ready to close, and within 7 days we closed on this property. It took all of 20 minutes with the seller on the phone and about less than 10 text messages with my buyer to get this property closed. It was the easiest deal that I've ever done, all because I filtered my buyer correctly. And that is what it really comes down to. If you can getting a deal under contract at a great price and finding a serious buyer, not just a buyer, a serious buyer, because the serious buyers are going to be the ones who don't waste your time. They're not going to give you the runaround and tell you, hey, it needs to have this, it needs to have this, there's this wrong with the property. Serious buyers know that this is a wholesale deal and it comes with its flaws and imperfections, and that's why we sell it at the price that we do. People who are inexperienced at negotiating will try to nickel and dime you for every little thing because that's the only way they know how to do it. But serious cash buyers know that their time is valuable, and for that reason they won't mess around or beat around the bush. They're going to tell you exactly where they need to be and if it works for them. And don't waste a serious buyer's time. If it doesn't work out for them, don't try to convince them otherwise. They've done their research, they know their numbers, they do this multiple times a month. Don't waste their time. Instead, say, hey, listen, if we can get that approved or if we can get that price to work for my partner, are you saying you're ready to move forward? And if you need to, go back to the seller and renegotiate to make it work for your buyer. And it doesn't hurt to ask the buyer, hey, we tried to renegotiate, or at this point, is there any way you could come up just a little bit, or can you come up at all? And once you allow them to take control of that, they can tell you, hey, no, I need to be here, or yeah, I can come up about 10 grand, 5 grand, whatever it may be. So once again, it is very much possible to get these things done quickly with the right systems and processes in place. The same systems and processes and the techniques that I teach in all my videos. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe down below and click that notification bell. That way you get notified of any time I go live. Also, when I post a new video, I do live Q&As each week where I lay it all out on the table and answer all your questions. So comment down below your favorite color, and if you have any questions, and I'll personally respond to any questions or comments down below. I've also set up a private Facebook group. If you would like to join that, it's going to be a community where we can help each other, ask questions. I'll be happy to answer questions, and we can bounce ideas off each other if that's something you're interested in. I'll have that link in the description below as well. As always, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the subscribes. It really does make my day every time I see those and those notifications on my phone. I really, really appreciate it, and I wish you all nothing but the best.